Welcome to Evilive, a live media commentary show that answers the question, when does a maester learn the itchy asshole treatment? Subscribe if you're new to the channel, because today we are reviewing HBO's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Nine Kingdoms? Seven? Nine? Season 1, Episode 6, The Morrow. Now, this is the last episode of the entire first season, which is sad, because this might be my favorite Game of Thrones. I shouldn't even call it Game of Thrones. My favorite A Song of Ice and Fire series. Better than the original Game of Thrones. Better than House of the Dragon. At least in this moment. Because it gave us something that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon never has. Which is a sense of humor. An endearing series of characters. And consequences for shit asses. And that's something that's very rare in A Song of Ice and Fire. Completely. So I appreciate that. All right, that being said, again, this is the last episode, The Morrow. It was directed by Sarah Adina Smith, written by Ira Parker and Ty Mickle. And, of course, it just aired last night. All right, so we start with Lionel and his maester looking down, very Pulp Fiction style, on a beat the fuck up Dunk, who is just hurting. Don't ask him how he feels. He's hurting. And it's got like crazy jazz music, which, at least I'm going off memory, I'm pretty sure it was jazz, but it felt wildly out of place. And look, there's a lot of random musical choices, but this felt the most out of place. They could have had the same imagery with more typical music of the series, and it would not credits music, but like the typical show music, and it would have been infinitely better. But because they had that such jarring music focusing on that straight, viewing up ant view, it felt really off to me, and it was a little discordant. I don't know. It struck me as odd, even though I love jazz and I like the show. It just together, it didn't really work for me. In any case, that whole scene of Baratheon basically saying, look, man, you can come with me. You got a place in Storm's End. And Dunk's just like, yeah, I don't think so, man. I think I've had my fill of lords and knights and stuff. You're all a bunch of shit asses. I'm paraphrasing. And then Lionel's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, Baratheon didn't try, Baratheon, oh my gosh, Baelor, didn't really have any actual threat. And that's why he got his ass kicked, because he was tempting the gods too much. He went into it knowing that he was going to be facing off against people who were sworn to protect him and couldn't hurt him. And it was just the random chaos of the gods that he ended up getting his ass killed. You can't hold that against yourself, and you shouldn't venerate this man, because we fought for you too, and we're still here. We didn't have the benefit of not being able to be harmed by half of the members of this group of 7. And Dunk, I don't think this really sinks in. Everything that Lionel is saying is 100% true and accurate. And the people that stood and fought with him that were not the heir prince to be were actually taking an infinitely larger gamble than he did, even though Baelor died. It's still the reality of, we stood and fought for you regardless of power because it was the right thing to do. You need to show us a little doggone respect. And I loved the scene. I loved how he was shouting down, because Dunk needs to hear this type of stuff. As much as from Dunk's perspective, he's like, I am a piece of shit. All these people fought and got hurt and died because of me. And it's all because of, I just wanted to help someone that was getting beat up and was going to get their fingers broken apart. And that's what I thought knights were supposed to do. And then I go out and like no knights want to stand with me, except that a lot of knights did want to stand with you. I think he is having an unfair reaction to the lords and knights of the realm based on the fact that one person, he couldn't find the one person until Baelor came out. And that's not a fair assessment because everyone else decided to fight with him. And yes, they had ulterior motives, but they still stood up next to him and fought beside him for him. And he needs to come to terms with that. Regardless of the reasons why people do things, you still have to respect that they did them. They did the hard things, regardless of reason, right? So then he goes and watches the funeral pyre of Baelor, and you gotta kind of feel a little bit bad. It used to be dragons that would like ignite these funeral pyres in this massive display of power and flame, you know? And now it's just some dude with a lighter, just flint and steel. Just like, I'll get it in a second. Just hold on a second. It's just hilarious to me. But what are you going to do, right? I mean, that's the Targaryens have fallen from grace compared to where they were. And we never really understood why dragons stopped hatching or started sort of winding down in their size and stuff. At least I don't know the reason why. But it does very much seem to be tied to the corruption. First of all, it's the post-Dance of the Dragons, and so a lot of dragons died in that conflict. But then also, I think because we're meant to believe in A Song of Ice and Fire that the Targaryens are tied directly to the dragons, their corruption and madness, I like to think in my headcanon, is the reason why the dragons started going away and why it took so long for them to come back. And I like that idea because it then presents almost a sense of cosmic justice for the Targaryens where they have to sort of reap what they sow. Like the power that put them on the throne is becoming as corrupt and destructive and sparse because of their own madness and injustice. I don't know. It works for me anyway. So then we have Dunk finding Valar, who is just sitting there going like, my dad wore my armor. Usually people die in their dad's armor, not the other way around. Like, why the hell did the gods spare you? Looking at Dunk, and Dunk's just like, bro, I haven't got I don't know. Just don't know. And he's having such a hard time. And I just don't understand. Like, I get feeling bad for the people that died. That makes logical sense. But you weren't wrong in this conflict. They were the ones that were wrong. They were the ones that put you on this. So if you want to be pissed at anyone, be pissed at the Targaryens and stop feeling sorry for yourself. You stood up to the moment, which is what knights are supposed to do. Don't sit there and whine when there's consequences. Life is filled with consequences. And that drives me crazy when people whine, bitch, and moan about things that they could easily avoid. He chose to go in there and stop the Targaryen. And now he's facing the consequences. You can't hem and haw and whine and moan when you were the cause of getting in there. They were the cause of this Night of the Seven. Let responsibility lie where it's supposed to lie. And don't beat yourself up for things that you cannot control, like Targaryens. And then, of course, he meets Raymond. Raymond, who clearly doesn't understand how long it takes for a woman to become pregnant. Because, like, the way it was framed, it seemed like she came to him after the battle, which was last night, and they had sex after she helped him off with the armor. And then in that morning, she was like, oh, you got me pregnant. And he's like, wow, I'm going to be a dad. Is this kid the stupidest person on the planet? Was he a virgin? Like, how does he not know that it takes a little bit more? I mean, yes, he could have gotten her pregnant, but for her to know that the next morning and then start showing, unless it's like some weird sorcery, she definitely is a whore who got pregnant and is looking for a sugar daddy to take care of it. How does he not know? Did he not see her around the camp like everyone else did? She was like flitting in and out of tents. She was a whore. So how does he not know? And if he does know and he's okay with it, hey, good for him. No shame, you know? And look, just because you're a whore doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean there's something horrible about you. I mean, typically in our world, it means that you've probably suffered under some abuse at some time. But in this fantasy world, let's be hopeful in a world that's not hopeful at all, and say, you know what, she's a good person and she's going to do right by this poor kid. But I love that moment when he walks up and he clearly sees Dunk is in pain, both emotionally and physically. And he's like, this dude needs a hug. Just maybe a little too long of a hug, according to Dunk. He's like, all right. Just like, get the fuck off me, dude. But it was just a really tender moment that I really, really appreciated. And then, of course, he's summoned to Maekar. And Maekar is, Maekar's a shit ass, just like his son Arion. Because at one moment, he's sitting there saying, I killed my brother. They're always going to call me a kinslayer. And yes, and yes. And then on the other hand, as soon as Dunk chimes in, like, they're going to blame me, he jumps on that bandwagon. And he's like, yeah, they're going to be talking shit about you forever, dude. Like, whoa. You were just talking about you. Let's focus on that. And how about you make that guy feel a little bit better? Because it was your shitty kid that put this whole thing into motion. It was your shitty kid that made him fight, and you fight your brother that ended up in your brother's death. Don't put this on Dunk. This was your son and your doing. You need to take responsibility. These Targaryens are just a bunch of shit asses that just push off responsibility on other people as if they have no choice in life. I hate it so much. But Maekar does at least recognize that his son is a shit ass and that he's going to send his ass off to the east, to Essos, to, I don't know, like, maybe the humidity will help him. Like, I'm not sure the rationale, but clearly Targaryens who stay in royalty and are treated as royals end up being shit asses. That's just the way it turns out. And so when he offers Dunk, hey, you got a place in Summerhall, come train my last son so that my last son can actually be a good person. He's like, I'm done with princes, man. Like, this whole thing could have been avoided except for you guys, and I don't want anything to do with it anymore. And he walks away. Now, this does deviate from the book, and I don't really like it that much. I prefer the book version. And once I get to that point, I'll talk about it. But just to know, he leaves, and as he goes, he talks to Egg because Egg was sort of eavesdropping. And then we see this really great little flashback, which is a bit of a teaser about whether or not Dunk was ever knighted by his Sir Arlen, his liege, I don't know, his knight. And it still never answered it. And it never even addresses it very much in the books. And so I don't really mind not knowing. What I mind is the constant teasing of it, because it's never been mentioned. So why are you making it more of a deal than it needs to be by having these little teases? Because on one hand, if he was never knighted, if Dunk was never knighted, then everything we know about him is a lie, because he is living his life as this innocent, honorable person who was taught how to be knights, from this very humble background, and this aspirational knight within him. But if he was never knighted, then he's a fucking liar. And all of that is bullshit that he is just making up. And he may still believe he wants to be a knight and believe in the idea of being a knight, but he got on Egg for lying to him about not being a Targaryen, lie of omission, and like yelled at him for it. And now you're going to then say that you're not an actual knight? I mean, that's some bullshit, right? So the whole thing, it has to land where he is not, where he is a knight. Otherwise, it makes his character into a true hypocritical piece of shit. And I don't want that to be the case. That's not how we've been introduced to him thus far. And that would be a horrible realization for the character that we have come to love in Duncan. All right. So, let's see. He laments to Baelor that Baelor would have been a good king, and he invites Dunk to live in Summerhall. We already talked about that. Let's see. In the present, Daron, the drunk, he is tells Dunk that, look, sorry, I just had a spam phone call come in. We need to get Aegon out of the castle. Like, look, my brother, Arion, the one that started this whole nonsense in the first place, he was a good dude. He liked life. Like, he was a nice kid. But it's the system that corrupts us. So you need to get Aegon, again, I'm paraphrasing, you need to get Aegon out of there. Because without you, he's going to end up like me and my brother and all the other shit-ass Targaryens. So do the right thing here, bro, and take him. And Dunk's just like, you got a good point. And that's the justification for Dunk to go back and then meet up with what actually happened in the book. So he goes back and he talks to Maekar. He's like, hey, you know how I said I didn't want anything to do with princes before? Well, turns out Aegon's not actually a prince yet, so maybe he can come with me, live a life on the road, and be a knight. Maekar sees right through what he's saying. And what he's saying is, if he stays with you, he's going to end up just like your other sons. You don't want that. I don't want that. Let's get together and make this kid a good human being. And Maekar's like, look, I'm hearing you, but I'm not going to let you take my last son on the road in a wildly dangerous world where he could be literally killed by anything without the protection of the royal house. Like, it's not going to happen. In the book, he's like, you got a good point. Okay, you can have my boy. Like, straight up, he just lets him go. Because he knows that if he stays, he's going to end up like his other sons, which is what he's trying to prevent. So for him to have that cutscene at the end, it undercuts everything about that character. Because look, Aegon went in to kill Arion. He was so pissed off he saw his hair coming back. He knew his lineage. He knew where he was going to be. And the one person that's responsible for all this shit hitting the fan is Arion, who is laid up right now. So he could just easily walk in there and stab the shit out of him. But Maekar saw him and Maekar stopped him with love. And now Maekar's like, no, I don't want you to go away and become a good person. I want you to stay here in this household and become corrupted like everyone else. It does not track with that story beat. So I don't know why they took that choice, but it was the completely wrong choice, and it completely changes the dynamic of Maekar in and of itself. Maekar grew when he killed his brother. He saw the danger of the Targaryen dynasty that he was instilling in his kids, and he didn't want that for Aegon, so he let Dunk take him. And in the book, that's all wiped away as he wishy-washes on both sides. I don't like it at all. The realm needs good men, 100%. Gunther and Sturm. Not in this universe. All right, so then Raymond ends up buying Sweetfoot back for Dunk, and Dunk really appreciates it, but he's like, look, man, you put your life on the line for me. He would be so much better with you if you're going to go do that cider thing in those orchards. He loves apples. You keep him. And Raymond was like, oh, I already bought him, so he's already mine. Thanks. No, he was really appreciative, and, it was like a gift of a gift. It was, I don't know, it was a weird reneging of an exchange. But the sentiment was there, and between these two characters, they're never in the books together again. And so I really like this as like a closing statement to their relationship, assuming the other seasons are going to be based on the books. I like this as being like a parting gift. Like, look, I bought him back for you. Oh, that's so sweet. You're such a good friend. But you know what? I've got what I need right now. You keep him. He's going to be happier with you. You're going to give me your horse? Oh, that's so sweet. Like, you really do appreciate me as a human being and as a friend and the sacrifice I made for you. Thank you, Dunk. Right? We had that great moment. And I love the dynamic between Dunk and all the people who aren't pieces of shit. Because it lets you know that you can be a good human being. And you'll suffer for it, but you can do it. It's a choice, And I like that. I like that idea. Okay, so then as Dunk is leaving, Egg is like, my Lord Father told me to come with you, liar face. And so what do you think Dunk is going to do? He already railed against Aegon for lying to him once. And now Aegon's going to lie to him again? And Dunk's just going to be okay with it? This is going to cause all sorts of fallout with the Targaryens, which was the catalyst for the fight of the Seven, right? The Battle of the Seven. And now he's doing it again? Like, that's why this whole story beat does not make sense. Changing it from the book into this only sets up more discord and more pain on Dunk and Egg, with Egg knowing he's doing it, which again makes him malicious and not a good person like we want him to be. And in the book that he is. So it undercuts so many character choices. I don't know why they made this choice. And I don't know if they're not thinking about it or they don't think it's important, but these small choices completely change the dynamic between Dunk and Egg, from one of trust and loyalty to one of deceit and treachery, ultimately, because Egg is now not only the cause of his own uncle's death and the upheaval of the realm, but now potentially Dunk's life. It's such a bad choice, in my opinion. All right. So, of course, they depart together and they leave and they're talking about the whole 7 kingdoms, 9 kingdoms. I mean, it was called 7 kingdoms because it was 7 kingdoms at one time, and now it's 9, and they never really updated the language in all the pronouncements of Lord of the 7 realms and the first men and blah, 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 right? Like, who really cares? But it was just a way of them sort of doing a little tongue-in-cheek, like, haha, there's actually 9 now. But we did see this really beautiful moment where Sir Arlen is telling Dunk about how when they swear on to be a member of a liege lord and fight for him in battle, they nail a penny to a tree, hence the name Penny Tree, and they go off to battle. If they make it back, they come back and take the pennies. And the sadness of that is that there's hardly any room to put a penny on because so many people didn't make it back. That's the life of a hedge knight, right? Of a sworn sword. And so in this really beautiful, touching moment before they leave Ashford, Dunk nails a penny to that tree that is now his crest in honor of the man that he's leaving behind, which is the memory of his knight, of his teacher, Arlen. And then we see this beautiful sequence of Dunk and Egg riding off on their horses just casually into the distance, and Arlen sort of paralleling them and then straightly, just turning a hard right or a hard left and just going off perpendicular, telling us that Dunk is finally able to move on from student to teacher and leaving all of the pain and anguish and frustrations behind. Now he's just himself. He's no longer the squire to Arlen. He is now a knight training a squire. And it's such a beautiful moment because the idea of growing and leaving your past behind, but still having it be there as sort of connective tissue to who you are now, is just such a beautiful statement that, yeah, he's no longer with him. He's not going to be reflecting back on him, but he's why he's now with Egg. He is why he's now the knight that he is. He was inspired by this person who was clearly not a good knight himself, but he was good enough to teach him what honor meant and to do the right thing. And it's something that Dunk is going to continuously strive to do at his own peril as far as the books have been written thus far. And I love that about this character because it's a very sort of King Arthur type vibe. What got me into fantasy in the first place. Of all the families in this world, thanks for tuning in, Chris, by the way. I still can't understand why the dragons chose the Targaryens to be connected to. They're such treacherous a-holes. Why not a more noble, evolved family? Well, this was in Old Valyria, and they weren't the rulers of Old Valyria. There was a bunch of different families that sort of ruled there. And so maybe back then they weren't all shit asses, right? It wasn't until they took their dragons and came to Westeros and they tried to, sort of like stretch their legs in power and authority that they became those shit asses. And that's why they are the way they are now and suffering for it, in my opinion. through their madness and stuff like that. But that wasn't the case in Old Valyria. And so there may be a which hasn't really been explored to my knowledge, there may be a legacy of Targaryens that are actually awesome people. Perish the thought, but there might be good Targaryens out there. And there have been good kings and stuff, so it's not like this curse, that they're all mad and crazy and shitty. And with Joffrey in the Game of Thrones, with Joffrey taking the throne and him being a total psychotic piece of shit, proves that it doesn't take a Targaryen to be a horrible king. It's a symptom of the Iron Throne. It's more of a symptom of the Iron Throne than it is a result of Targaryens being Targaryens. And so that's why I think, at least in my head canon, I justify them, having that power of the dragons and then losing that power of the dragons. All right. And then we have that final closing scene with Maekar going, "Where's Egg? Where's Egg?" Again, undercutting everything from the novel and everything about character development and completely upending the choices made by Egg, which will influence Dunk moving forward negatively and everything. So what are you going to do? Unless they come around and have Maekar go like, okay, well, I realized where Egg went, and you know what? I'm okay with it. If that's the case, then okay, that makes sense. But it still doesn't justify Egg lying a second time to Dunk, who has always proven that if you lie to me, I'm not going to be very happy about this. You can't have a friendship built on lies. It has to be built on honesty, even if that hurts sometimes. It's the only way that you can grow as an individual and have a true connection with another human being. And Egg is undercutting that right now, and I do not like it. So, in any case, reflecting back on the series as a whole, 6 episodes, very short, but it fits real tightly and nicely with the first novelette. And I really loved it. I loved this first season so much. I gave a lot of the episodes 4 stars or 3 stars because of, choices on timing and characters and stuff. But ultimately, I have to, on reflection, give this entire first season 5 full evil eyes. It has earned every evil eye, which is a good thing on this show at least. And I love this series. I think they did a great job. I'm concerned with how they're going to make those choices about Aegon and Maekar, about Aegon going with Dunk, and how it's changed. I'm worried about that. But ultimately, with George R.R. Martin and Ira Parker, I think this is in good hands. I think they're going to do a good job. They have thus far. And they're already in production of season 2. So that's coming next year for season 2. So I'm really looking forward to that. 6 episodes, you mean? I mean, we only had 6 of this, not even 7. 7 would have been nice. Usually, a season used to be 21 to 25 episodes of a show. That's what it used to be. I'm watching, when I run in the mornings, I watch X-Files episodes, and I've been doing it for months, and I'm only on season 2. Because there's 20 plus episodes per season. And they've shrunk it down to being between 8 to 10 nowadays, usually in a season. And for this to be 6, you're just like, whoa, what the hell? But it actually does make sense for the content of the novelettes that they're adapting. So rather than doing filler or having nonsense episodes, they're just, no, this is what it is. This is the story, and we're going to tell it in however many episodes it takes to tell it. If that's 6, okay. If it's 7, all right. What are you going to do, right? So I can appreciate that, and I like it. I like what they're doing. It ended up being the highest rated Song of Ice and Fire series yet, and I love to see where they're going to go, especially if they're following the novelettes, because they're good. They're really good. All right, that is my review of I gotta look at the Morrow, which is season 1, episode 6 of A Night of the 7 Kingdoms, or A Night of the 9 Kingdoms. Ha ha. So you prefer the tone to this than the other 2 shows? That's fair. I really like the tone on this, but I do love me some serious nitty gritty, brutal Game of Thrones stuff. So I'll take whatever they can, push my way. We don't. It seems like in the last few years we've had a resurgence of fantasy series, which I really really love, but not all of them are very good. And so it's nice to run into some that are very, very good. All right. So in any case, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like the video, and leave a comment. This all goes to help other fans learn about this channel and its content. Thank you to creator patron Aaron Hardy, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of the YouTube members. As always, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.